Most people are focused on achieving some result that is very impressive rather than building a system that's unsexy but that just works. So like I had a reader who he ended up losing over 100 pounds. And one of the ways that he did it was in the beginning, he went to the gym, but he wasn't allowed to stay at the gym for more than 5 minutes. And that sounds really funny to people because it's the complete opposite of how most people try to get in shape, right? Like most people are sitting around, they feel bad about the fact that they're out of shape. So then they're like, all right, I'm going to do Insanity or P90X or join a CrossFit gym or do something like really intense. And they do that for 2 weeks or a month or something. And then they burn out or they get injured or whatever. And then they don't do anything for a few months until they get motivated again. And then like the cycle repeats itself. But he went to the gym for 5 minutes and then he just, would do like one exercise or something. And then when it got to be 5 minutes, he was like, all right, I got to go. So he did this for like 6 weeks. And what people fail to realize is that a habit must be established before it can be improved. So often we're focusing on what the outcome, we're optimizing for the finish line, but he optimized for the starting line. So try to figure out like, how can I make it as easy as possible to get started each day? And then after he was coming there for like 6 weeks, he'd already mastered the habit of showing up, right? Like he had built that habit of being there. Well, then you have all sorts of options because once you're the type of person who shows up, then you're like, well, what kind of exercise should I be doing? Or should I stay for 15 minutes instead of 5? Or, like I'm coming here every day, I might as well do something different. And there's all these little logistical things associated with a new habit that we don't really think about at first. Like, all right, I want to work out. Okay, well, what gym will you go to? What route will you take to get there? Are you going to work out on your own or with somebody else? Do you have to have your gym clothes ready before you go to work, or what time of day will you work out? Like all of that stuff. And when you just focus on the first 2 minutes or 5 minutes, you figure all that out and then you master the art of showing up and then you have the chance to improve from there. But so often people like jump over that whole starting point and just try to do something really impressive. And that's not how you can't build a good system that way. There's a great quote by John Gall, who's this like systems scientist. And he said something to the effect of, every working system is composed of a smaller working subsystem. You can't just build a big complex system from scratch. You always have to like pare it down and build a smaller working subsystem and then layer on top of that. And so many people try to build something impressive from scratch rather than just focusing on the first 2 minutes, mastering that, and then expanding from there.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's like this, these Herculean efforts that people go through, and it's like if you ran a marathon tomorrow, you'd burn like 2,000 or 3,000 calories, but it'd be so hard to do and so much effort, especially if you never trained for it. But it'd be so much better if you just ran like a mile a day for every day for the next year, right?
I actually did that. I tried to run a marathon without any training. It was so stupid. I made it 17 miles. And then my like Achilles seized up and I just like waddled back to the car like a penguin. It was a really very stupid idea. So I speak here from experience and failure and trying it the other way and realizing that this is a much better approach.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Like if you look at the marathon training, right, it's like that too. It's, you're going, like you're doing your long runs on Sundays, maybe, and you're doing like 10 miles. And then, the next week you do 8, and then the next week you do 12, and then the next week, eventually you get up there to where you're doing 20 miles. And once you've like, made those small, just a little bit more distance every single time, then you get to the point where you've gone from someone who could run for like, half an hour to someone who runs for 4.5 hours and finishes a marathon. And it's incredible that it doesn't feel like those little improvements are going to, are going to add up like that, but they do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it works the same way for non-fitness goals too. Like I have a friend who's a writer, and his daily habit is to write one sentence. And like, that doesn't sound impressive at all, but there are some days where he'll write like an entire page or write a full chapter or whatever. But it needs to be your habit needs to be easy on the good days so that you can still stick to it on the hard days. Like there are going to be days when you don't feel like showing up. And those are the days where it's actually more important to show up and get something in, because you're like reaffirming the identity that you're the type of person who does this, even when it's not easy or simple or whatever. And that's another reason I think to like optimize on focusing on those first 2 minutes, or just making it as easy as possible to get started, so that you can reinforce that identity of being that type of person who doesn't fall off course.
Yeah, no, that's a really good tip. That's definitely something that I try to do all the time. I call it treading water. It's like, because you're not always going to be like, sometimes you just got to tread, and it's like the people that are able to tread water are the ones who are able to push on it. Like, you don't make the backwards progress. Like, it's like
Mhm.
sometimes when I got like, I'm feeling sick and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can even run today. I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna put on my shoes. I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna run as far as I can. I'm supposed to do 10 miles today, but if I even just run one, then I've at least like, it's better than I'm treading water today, right? It's like, or if I get
Yeah.
to the gym, I'm like, I'm just gonna lift and just do what I can, and at least I've done it, rather than just skipping it and then you make backwards progress.
That's good. I like that. I mean, it does feel like that too, right? It just some days you just feel like you're treading water, and you're like, why am I even bothering? I'm not making any progress. But the point is, you're not losing ground, and
Yeah.
that's like really essential. And it's sometimes it's not even about the progress; it's about being that type of person and like
Hmm.
proving to yourself that that's who you are. Which is I like that approach.